Few names get cinephiles as excited as Joel and Ethan Coen. The writer-director brothers have been responsible for some of the most critically acclaimed movies in recent memory, such as Fargo, No Country for Old Men, A Serious Man, and more, whilst also creating iconic cult films like The Big Lebowski and Inside Llewyn Davis. Their pedigree as terrific filmmakers could not be more well established, and they don't really do anything for me. I wouldn't place any of their films on any worst of lists, but I just can't help but feel phenomenally indifferent to almost everything that they put out. In fact, I actually think it's in their comedy where they excel, with Burn After Reading being my favourite film of theirs. But I'm clearly in the minority, and their clout in the industry at least allows them to assemble star-studded casts, spouting witty dialogue. But how would someone like me respond to Hail Caesar, a supposed love letter to the golden age of Hollywood? Would I have the same indifference, or is there something really to their style that I've been missing all this time? It's 1951, and Eddie Mannix is a fixer at the fictional Capitol Pictures in Hollywood. Essentially, he manages productions and looks after the contracted actors to make sure their escapades don't wind up in the press. Capitol Pictures is nearing the end of production for their biggest movie of the year, Hail Caesar, led by superstar Baird Whitlock. However, Whitlock gets kidnapped by a secret organisation known only as The Future, and they demand $100,000 in ransom money. It's up to Eddie to discover what is going on, ensure Hail Caesar gets completed, and come to terms with whether or not this is the right job for him. While Hail Caesar is a fictional story, its setting and characters invite parallels to real-life Hollywood figures. Baird Whitlock is a Kirk Douglas-style star, Western cowboy actor Hobby Doyle is comparable to Kirby Grant, Burt Gurney is starring in a Sailor-style musical as a Gene Kelly-esque actor, and Tilda Swinton portrays the Thacker twins, who are journalists with a rivalry similar to Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper. Also, Eddie Mannix, while a real-life fixer, has nothing in common with his on-screen counterpart other than his name and occupation. The real Eddie Mannix was a brute with mafia connections and was involved in numerous scandals in a deplorable marriage. To talk about the themes at play in Hail Caesar, I'm going to need to delve into some real-life history, so buckle up. Hail Caesar's setting of 1951 is at a point where the Hollywood studio system was starting to break down. Back then, actors would be under exclusive contracts with the studios, would often live in trailers on the lot, and their lives would be controlled by the monopoly of the Big Five in Hollywood. The Big Five were MGM, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Paramount Pictures, and RKO Pictures. And just to emphasize that this was a literal monopoly, the studios also owned the theatre chains that would screen their movies, so they could refuse to screen rival movies to prop up their own releases, and they would also deny theatre chains the prints off their own blockbuster movies unless they also screened their smaller junk releases in a process known as block booking. If that sounds illegal, that's because it was, and in 1948 a Supreme Court ruling, United States v Paramount Pictures Incorporated, these artistic dictatorial practices were forbidden and the golden age of Hollywood started to come to an end. Now, you're here for a review and not a history lesson, but that context is important in order to decipher just what the Coen Brothers are doing with Hail Caesar, as it's a condemnation of the studio system as a business, but a celebration of the films that were created under such a system. Yes, the studios worked with the tabloids so they could control information, but Gone with the Wind. Yes, actors were cast in certain parts regardless of whether or not they were fit for the role, but Sunset Boulevard, actors were sent on fake dates so they could create scandals to drum up promotion for upcoming movies regardless of their actual sexuality, and they control the actors and treat them like objects by forcing them to alter their bodies and lifestyles to meet their demands. But The Wizard of Oz, King Kong, Singing in the Rain, Anchors Aweigh, Casablanca, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, you get my point hopefully. Hail Caesar is walking a razor-thin line by acknowledging that the system it portrays is immoral and broken, but also reminding the audience members of the iconography such a system created by drawing the parallels between the fictional actors and movies it depicts and the real-life figures it takes inspiration from. One of the movie's funniest sequences has Ray Fiennes as a prestige director making a drama, being saddled with Alden Ehrenreich as a Western movie star with a thick accent and an inability to speak dramatic dialogue. This sequence makes up most of the second trailer for the movie, but in context it's even funnier as the scenario drags on, and seeing this highbrow director's kind facade diminish in the face of this earnest and kind-hearted actor determined to do well shows how far subtle characterization can carry a comedic set piece. Just like Burn After Reading, the Coen brothers find themselves right at home with dialogue-driven comedy, such as a scenario where Eddie has gathered 4 prominent religious figures representing 4 different faiths to see if their new Hail Caesar movie is inoffensive and the 4 cannot agree. The dialogue dialogue really does pop, and the actors are truly on the same wavelength as the writers, meaning we get well fleshed out characters brimming with personality. This actually ends up working against Hail Caesar to an extent, as many subplots either don't see a resolution or end off screen because the cast is so big. I wanted to know if Ralph Fiennes ever got his film made and how it was received. I wanted to know if Alden Ehrenreich's date near the end of the movie ever got a follow-up. In a sense, Hail Caesar might be one of the best pilots to a television series that will never get made. Using Eddie Mannix as a window into this vast and varied world of a 1950s studio was a brilliant concept, but it feels like a concept too big for a standalone story. Despite their prominence in the marketing campaign, Frances McDormand and Jonah Hill only get one scene each, and Jonah Hill only gets around 10 words to speak in the entire movie. For crying out loud, Jonah Hill is credited over Ralph Fiennes and Scarlett Johansson in the credits and in certain posters, despite only having a fraction of the screen time. He must have a ridiculously good agent. Also, we have a twist reveal towards the end as to who in the studio was behind the kidnapping of Baird Whitlock, but because we only met the character very briefly beforehand, it was a twist that probably didn't have the impact it was supposed to. We also have the issue of Eddie Mannix's entire character arc and thought process being internal for most of the movie, as he decides whether or not to move on to an easier, better paid job, which also allows him to spend time with his family. We spend so much time bandying about from character to character that we don't really understand why it's such a hard decision for him until right at the very end of the movie, and even then it feels like too little too late. That's got nothing to do with Josh Brolin, who is on fire in this movie. It just feels like his character arc is underwritten, and the priorities of Hail Caesar often feel skewed, because the audience will be treated to a South Pacific-esque musical sequence with Channing Tatum for 5 minutes, and damn can he dance, but it couldn't find time to flesh out its main character's thought process. As great as it is to see an affectionately recreated Golden Age dance number, maybe it's something that should have been played as background dressing, as opposed to being the sole focus for longer than is necessary. Not to mention a 2-minute sequence where a submarine surfaces, or a lengthy recreation of a big-budget swimming movie in the vein of Million Dollar Mermaid. It begs the question of whether or not the Coen Brothers need an outside influence in the editing room. However, as a tour guide of Capitol Pictures, a lot of the movie is held together by terrific performances. George Clooney is as great an on-screen presence as you'd expect, Scarlett Johansson is a lot of fun playing an angelic-looking woman with the mouth of a sailor, and Ralph Fiennes proves again after the Grand Budapest Hotel that he is such a gifted comedic performer, but the breakout star is easily Alden Ehrenreich as a gunslinging actor who really is as nice and as sincere as he lets on, which makes the scenes of him being forced to take part in a highbrow drama all the funnier. The movie does have a big cast, but the above names and Josh Brolin really are the main players, as the rest of the cast is comprised of one-scene, walk-on cameos at best. The story itself works, with Eddie having to discover who the future are and ensure that the production of Hail Caesar gets completed, but any character development during that time feels like it would have been better spread out over the course of a 12-episode television series, which I would love to see from this creative team. But the movie overall still works because it has an irresistible charm, the cast are so game, and the subtextual critique of the Hollywood studio system gives audience members in the know plenty to chew on, but it feels like the Coen Brothers bit off a bit more than they could chew here. But the film looks terrific, as Roger Deakins provides predictably awesome cinematography, with many bright colours and heavy shadows in the right environment. The sets and studios that Eddie Mannix finds himself on are packed with detail, and the costumes are terrific. Despite its modest $22 million budget, Hail Caesar looks double that, at least, and is worth seeing on the big screen. The music is period accurate, the sight gags are plentiful, and anyone who has a passing familiarity or affection towards 1950s Hollywood will find something to enjoy here. This feels like the biggest movie the Coen Brothers have ever done, and I really can't fault the production values, other than an oddly out-of-place Michael Gambon providing pointless narration. So, after all of that, here's my conclusion. As a character piece examining Eddie Mannix, the fixer of Capitol Pictures, Hail Caesar feels too ambitious for its own good, as the window dressing of 1950s Golden Age Hollywood gets in the way of any character growth for almost everyone in the central cast. But as a walking tour of that era, a thoughtful reflection on the benefits and moral drawbacks of the faltering studio system in 1951, filled with great dialogue, gut-busting comedic set pieces, gorgeous production design, a brilliant ensemble cast, and delivering pure entertainment, Hail Caesar succeeds with flying colours. In fact, I would say that this is the best Coen Brothers movie ever. Though bear in mind that I'm not a fan of their dramatic work, so maybe that conclusion doesn't hold much weight to you, but hey, that's just my opinion. I give Hail Caesar 4 stars out of 5.
I'd like to know what the hell is going on here. 20 million readers want the truth, Eddie.
Truth, yes.
Eddie?
Hello everyone, thanks for listening to my review. You can find these reviews a day or two early on my website, www.trilbee.com, so be sure to visit there where you can find a written version and other written content. But more importantly, what did you think of the film? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe for more movie related analysis. Be sure to hit that like button because that really helps me out, and you can support my content through Patreon and also get your name in the credits with these other lovely people and get exclusive perks and updates. I'll see you folks next time.